How to invoke web service. In the last session, then let us look at the code. The format is simple. Whatever we have done in the last session, the same story. This is what we discussed in the last class. What is the format here? Look at the format. Text local. Look at the API documentation. Text local. So if I want to send SMS, send SMS. This is the URL. Then they ask you what format of request. I'm sending a get format of request. When you're trying to send a get format of request, they give the URL and what they are expecting you to pass. Apart from the URL, they're expecting you to pass API key, the numbers to which you want to send a SMS, and who is the sender, and what is the message you want to send. They told this is the endpoint URL /send question mark, then API key, then number, then sender, then message. So because it's a get method, we are passing in the URL. The same story we are repeating here. The same story we are repeating here in the Salesforce. Go back to your this is the endpoint URL, API key, number to which you want to send SMS, message which you want to send, sender. Now they told if you are not having any predefined, registered structure, they told you to use text local as the sender. So for me, cap INF is my sender name. Go back here. From where I was supposed to give, I was supposed to pass this data. API key, sender, phone, message, result. So let me create a VF page. So we got API key and we have number to which you want to send. Sender. Message. Right. So here we are supposed to give the class. Then we are supposed to mention the button. What is a send SMS is the method name. I was creating some button here. Action equal to. Then once you get the result, I want to capture the result and then to display it. Once you get the result, I want to capture it and I want to display it. So command button value action. Numbers. Yes, not number. Numbers. So look at the code. Phone. Okay. This is what I got. So what is the primary thing that I need to do? Register the endpoint URL. The first thing that I was supposed to do is register the endpoint URL. Second thing, the size I have to increase. Any third-party system to which I am sending, the third-party system should be registered with remote site settings. So let us do that first. Any third-party system to which I am sending the message or request, the third-party system should be registered with remote site settings. So go back to this endpoint URL. Go to the remote site settings. Setup. Security controllers. Remote site settings. Save it. Okay. So before I demonstrate, let us look at the code once again. If you are finding any difficulty in this code, let me know. If you are finding any difficulty, endpoint URL, the URL only we are putting because it's a get method. So request, set endpoint URL, set method, send a request, get the response, set a request, get the response. Whatever the response we are receiving, we are trying to display it here. So don't re-render the entire block. Right. Now demonstrate this. Let's demonstrate this example. API key, go back to copy the key what I have. Key I have given. Number, can somebody share your number? Can someone share your mobile number?
7330
7330
46
46
2434.
2434. And someone else also has given this number. I'll share it. Now, if you don't have do not disturb option enabled, you will be receiving the message. Right. So, message example, send SMS. Bad request 400. So the URL is not fixing up. Let us check here. So let me check it out. What is the bug here? Okay, let me first try it with one number. Then let me check out whether issue with 400 means the request format is this issue with the request format. Reload. Copy my key number, some number they are given. I am copying it. Right. Sender. They are given default sender. Okay. Example. Send SMS. Now status is okay, but they are look at the point. Status is okay, but message can be sent between 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. as listed by right. So from our end, request was sent successfully. Status is okay. Response body, they told as per the try rules, this message can be sent. Please meet your Micama. Nagarazu, meet your mic. Now you can see this. As per the try rules, only 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. they can send the message. That's why request was sent, but it's still in the it has thrown error message that only from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. the message can be sent. But request was successful from our end, everything was good, but only it was a failure because you are able to see the message here, status okay. And also we got the response. This is the issue what we had. So we'll try to send it after 9 a.m. and we'll see whether message was delivered or not. Okay. So this is how we are sending the SMS from the Salesforce. Now, if you want to send outbound messages, if you want to send outbound message, like using an email. If you want to notify, we have outbound email services, but we don't have SMS service in the Salesforce. In case if you want to send any SMS notification, then this is how we are going to integrate it with any one of the third-party system. Now we need to check out. Then we need to check out bulk service providers, and we are going to integrate those bulk service providers with the Salesforce. Like whenever the payment is received, send an SMS. Whenever a case is received, whenever a new case is created, send an SMS. Whenever a case is closed, send SMS. Whenever the inquiry is received, send a SMS. So this is what we are going to use along with your Salesforce. Again, I repeat, whenever a new lead is created, send them an SMS. Okay, your complaint, okay, you have received your inquiry. Or whenever you raise a case, we need to send an SMS to the customer. Your complaint has been successfully registered. This is the complaint number. Keep it for further reference. Like that, if you want to send SMS, then we'll be using. Already we have built-in email service. If you want to notify using email, already we have outbound email services. In case if you want to send SMS, then this is the code what we are going to use it. I hope you are good with this. There is nothing complicated in the code. This is only the point. But only the point here is we need to understand the documentation, know what is the data we are supposed to send. So go to the API documentation, we can do it. Even for the test local, they are giving 5 to 8 SMS free of cost. On the trial account, they are giving 5 to 10 SMS they are giving. You can try with the test local, use the trial account. You can practice those 5 to, okay. You can practice those example. I think they are giving 5 or 8 SMS free for the trial accounts. Right, Amma? I hope everybody is good with this code. Anyone has any query now? Anyone has any query? Is that was good? Anyone has any query? Anyone has any query? Right. Now, next one. I want to send bulk SMS. Like I want to write a batch box. I want to write a batch box. Now, using the batch box, I want to call a web service. How do you invoke web services from batch box? How do you call web services from batch box? Now we have seen how to call the web service from Apex class. We have seen how to call web service from a trigger. Now I want to understand how we can call web service calls, from batch box. So what is my requirement? Let us see this. My requirement is go to account. Okay. Go to opportunity. Get all the opportunities. And update their opportunity amount value in INR. So every day in the nightly basis, every day in the nightly basis, it is going to run the operation, fetch all the opportunities, find out $1 equal to how many rupees, find out $1 equal to how many rupees, find out $1 equal to how many rupees, and update all the opportunity amount with INR value. Update all the opportunity amount with INR value. So the same code what we wrote for the trigger, I want to re-implement for the batch box. First, let us see how to create a batch box. Then try to call a web service in the batch box and see what are the difficulties we are finding. Then what is the solution we are going to give for it. Just let me put some batch box. opportunity. And get code located. Get the date. Database.batchable context. Then take one by one record first. When you want to update it, first you are supposed to make a web service call. So already we wrote the code, currency converter. Same code I'm going to handle it now. Already we wrote the code for getting this currency local. What was the code we wrote? HTTP, access, okay, access key, currency is INR, source USD. We already wrote this code. We know how to send the request and get the INR value. This is what we discussed in the last class. The same code I fetched here. Now what I'm doing for opportunity scope. Do you remember this code which you have done? Do you remember this code which you have done in the last session? Does all of you remember this code what you have done in the last session? Do you remember the code or not, boss?
Yes, Satish, we remember.
Yes, Satish, remember.
So AP dot okay, INR value equal to amount into value. So it should be a string value. So I'm putting rupees. So we are writing a web service called third party system, getting the value of INR, then number of dollars into INR and putting the data back to INR value. Then we say update scope. At the same time, write the finish. Batchable context. Now the question is, can I call web service from the batchbox or not? Is the question mark. Here, the purpose of we writing the web service code in the batchbox, because we just copy pasted the code. Then what is the purpose of writing the code in the batchbox? Here my question is, can we write web service call? Can we write a call out? Can we make a web service call out? Can we make a web service call out from the batchbox or not? Is the question which I want to test it. So let us execute this batchbox and see what is the error message we are getting. When I execute this code, you get an error message, too many callouts, one exception. So go back to this. Execute batch. And see 10 records at a time. Then I was trying to execute this batchbox. Go to the jobs. Apex jobs. So what is the error we received there? What is the error message we received? Too many callouts 1. There are 4 batch checks. It is saying an error called too many callouts. Why we are getting that too many callouts 1? Because the batch checks is not accepting a web service. Then how can I make the batch checks to accept the web service? Right, database dot allows. Then if the batch checks implement an interface called, if the batch checks implement an interface called, if the batch checks implement an interface called database.allow callouts, then we can call web service from the batch checks. So go back. I didn't make any change. I just added one more extra interface, database.allow callouts. Execute it. Go back. Refresh the page. Then you can see here, operation is completed. There is no error. So how can we call a web service from the batch box? In case if you want to call any web service call, in case if you want to make any web service call from the batch box, in case if you want to make any web service call from the batch box, then what we are supposed to do? The batch box has to implement an interface called database.allow callouts. In case if you want any web service call to be made from the batch box, we have to ensure that it is implementing an interface called database.allows callout. I hope you are good with this. Right. The next one. The same query, I want to understand whether we can make a web service call from schedule apex or not. The same point we want to discuss whether we can make a web service call from schedule apex. Whether we can make a web service call from schedule apex. Right. So let us see how to make a web service call from schedule apex. We already seen how to make a web service call from class, how to make a web service call from feature, how to make a web service call from batch apex, how to make a web service call from schedule apex. So we already seen the format of invoking web service from apex, web service from future, web service from batch apex. Go and play with mom. Play with mommy. Sorry. Sorry for the interference. Right. Okay. Now, let us go to the next one. We are trying to understand how to make a web service from schedule apex. The last story. How to make a web service from schedule apex. Now the point is, can I make a web service straight away from schedule apex or not? What I do, same code I will take. I'm not making any changes here. The same web service code. Then I go with schedule example. Schedulable. Public void. Where I was taking the data. Select ID. Value. opportunity. Now, I didn't make any change in the code. Exactly the same code what I wrote in the batch effects. Same thing I'm doing. Writing a SQL query, getting the list of opportunities, making a request to the third-party system, getting the value of $, then updating the records. The same code I'm executing. Now, what I want to do, run this code. Schedule this. When I want to schedule, the primary thing I need to understand what is the time zone that current user has. So go to the current user, identify the time zone of this person. So job will be scheduled as per the current user time zone. So modify the time zone. Okay, fine. Let me schedule the job now. So define the job. Okay. So I have scheduled a job. So in the schedule apex, what we have done, I have scheduled the job. In the schedule apex, what I have given, within the schedule apex, I have a code which makes a web service call. Let's go back and see. Schedule apex failed. The reason, call load from schedule apex not supported. You can look at this. Schedule apex failed. Call load from schedule apex not supported. Call load from schedule apex not supported. So what happened? You will not be able to call schedule, web service call directly from the schedule apex. You will not be able to call web service straight away from schedule apex. Then how can you do that? Then how will you implement a web service from the schedule apex? If you want to call web service from a schedule apex, how do you implement it? Then we have a solution called future method. So what was that future method? Look at this. So whatever the future method we have, define your web service call within the future method. Define the web service call within the future method. Then invoke the future method. You cannot call web service straight away in the schedule apex. So if you want to call a web service, we have to define a future method. Then you are supposed to pass it. Then what I do here, map of, because they're expecting a set of IDs. So I'm taking map of ID comma opportunity. New map of ID comma opportunity. I can write a SQL query in the form of map also. Map of ID comma opportunity, scope equal to new map of ID comma opportunity. As a parameter for the map, I was giving a query. So whatever the result we are getting, that result will be in the form of map, where record ID is going to be the key, record is going to be the value. So what we are supposed to pass here? IDs we are supposed to pass. Key set. Why IDs? We already know future will not accept. We already know future will not accept future method will not be accepting. We already know future method will not be accepting. Future method will not be accepting S object as a parameter. Invalid type opportunity. NATY. Right. As the future method doesn't accept there is some spelling mistake here. As the future method doesn't accept S object, I was passing the IDs of the record. Based on the IDs of the record, they are writing a SQL query, getting the list of records, and they are performing it. Based on the IDs of the record, they are writing a SQL query, getting the data, updating the records. So even the schedule apex does not support web service calls straight away. So what is the statement we are supposed to give? Synchronous web services are not supported. The time zone is not modified, so I have to, if I want to check whether it's executing or not, I have to modify the time zone. Let me schedule it the first time. So it is 5, they've given 6. Yeah. Right. Now, as I told you, future method is used to invoke web services asynchronously. One of the purpose of the future method is to invoke asynchronous web service calls. One of the purpose of the future method is to invoke web services asynchronously. One of the purpose of invoking the future method is to call the web services asynchronously. So let us go back and see the output. What is the status of the output? Apex jobs. Now look at this. Job is schedule apex queued, future method completed. Within the schedule apex, what we have done? Within the schedule apex, we called future method. The future method is running separately. Schedule is still pending. Right? So this is the solution. So finally, what are the conclusions we have? The apex code can be these are the web service. Can we call web service within the apex class? Can we call the web service within the apex class? Answer is yes, we can call it. Can I call web service in the future method? Yes, we can call. But what is the key point we need to maintain? Yes. Future, yes. But we should ensure that at the rate of the batch apex. Okay. If you want to call asynchronous means use future or queuable. Use the future. Sorry. At the rate of database dot allows callouts. So in the batch X, straight away we cannot call it. If you want to call it, we have to call asynchronously by using database dot allows callout. Right. So again I repeat here. Can I call it? No. If you want to call, we need to implement database dot allows callouts. Then schedule apex, can I call asynchronous? Why? Use batch apex future or so trigger use batch apex future. So out of all this, as the future is the method, rest of the topics are classes. As future is a method, rest of the topics are classes. We prefer to go with future method. So can I call asynchronous operations? Can I call asynchronous web services from the schedule apex? Yes. Can I call asynchronous web services from trigger? Yes. This is the overall basic conclusion about HTTP request. This is the overall basic explanation about HTTP request. Any query from your end on this topic? At the end of the game, whatever the code you write the code in the class or a future method or a batch apex or a schedule apex or a trigger. There is no other apex code we write. So from these areas, how to invoke web service calls, that's what we have seen. Any other queries from your end? Anyone else has any other query? Anyone else has any other query? Am I good with this? Okay. Now,
Hello, Satish.
yes,
Can we call future method within the batch apex?
you cannot call it. Here,
No. Yes.
we implemented a
That's why we can use
database.allows
dot
callout.
allow callouts. Thank you.
Anyone else has any query? Okay. Now, look at the next point here. When you are making a request to the third party system, the first interaction that we have seen is client making a request to server. And the server told this is open to everyone. Now, client made a request to the server without any authentication because the resource which is available in the server is open. The resource which is available in the server is open, so there is no authentication. That's why everybody was able to make a call. Postal India. This request we made, okay, trace URL or trace IP address. These two examples you have done. In these two examples, there is no authentication that we have provided. There is no security. Anybody can make a request, they are going to provide a response. So the resource is openly available for everyone. The resource is openly available for everyone. The second set of two examples that we have done, client server. The resource is not open for everyone. They generated one API key. Then they give the key to a client. Whenever the client want to make a request, they have to produce the API key. If we give this API key, whatever the key the server has generated, that key will be given to the client. So client has to always produce that key before he requests his data. Any resource that is there in the server, if the client want to access, he has to reproduce the key which is shared by the server. The resource which is there in the server, if the client want to request or client want to use it, he has to produce the key which is shared by the server. That is how we done currency conversion, SMS. So here the resource in the server is not open for everyone. It is based on API key. But the problem with the API key is when I shared my key with the client, Now what happened? When I gave a API key, now just now we have done SMS example. Now people looking at my code, if they copy paste the code and execute it, the text local will assume that you are Satish and send the SMS. Because I already copied the code. I already copied the API key. When I copied the API key, if somebody send an SMS, if I give my API key here, if somebody copy this key and send it, the text local will consider that you are Satish. But actually you are not Satish. You are running my program. When you are running my program, my API key is there When you are running a program, you can open this video, you can copy my API key, send an SMS. Then the text local will consider that you are Satish because you just copied the same key what is generated by me. Then it is unable to identify whether it is Satish or Kumar. If somebody produces the same key, it will consider that you are Satish. If somebody produces the same key, it will consider that you are Satish. Right? Why? Because the server will feel if you provide the same API key, you are Satish. It doesn't verify who is providing. So there is no proper security here. Because whoever provides my key, it will consider that they are Satish and run the operation. So I don't want to do this. So what happened? Then what happened? Then they told we are supposed to go to the authentication process in a different style. So what is the third type? Okay, what is the third type of authentication we are following now? We are following O authentication. The third type of authentication is O authentication. What was this O authentication? Open authentication, OAuth. Now we have client authorization server. So we will not allow the client to communicate directly with the server. Client will interact with the authorization server. Then authorization server will identify your credentials and everything. Then they'll provide you one key. Then whatever the key that authorization server is providing you, with that key I was supposed to communicate with server. So we are trying to avoid direct interaction with the server. Client will first communicate with the authorization server. The authorization server will communicate with the Salesforce or the server. They identify your credential. If everything is okay, then authorization server will share the key. Whatever the key that authorization server has shared, with the same key, you can make your request. How many requests you can make? Only one request. So if you want to access anything from the server, client is supposed to interact with the authorization server. Authorization server will verify your credentials and they provide you one key. Whatever the key they have produced, with the help of that key, you make a request to the server, request the resource. How many times I can make a request? I can only make one request to the server. So this format of authentication is there, which is called OAuth, open authentication. So this is what we are going to learn in the next two sessions. This is what we are going to learn in the next 2 sessions. Okay. Now, let us take some break, 5 minutes break, and come back. We'll continue with WAD. It's very, 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 very important. All the web services will be running on WAD. Today, every third-party system integrated, 90% will be running on WAD in the REST API. If you are using a REST API, 90% of the web services are going to run on WAD. If you are using a REST API, 90% are going to run on the WAD. Okay. Let us take some 5 minutes break and come back. I'll start this topic freshly.